I'm getting ready to do some tooling, and it occurred to me to do kind of a more targeted video just aimed at getting ready to tool, because there's a few different methods you can go about. So first off, the most common and almost certainly what you've already seen people tell you to do is take a sponge and just wet the surface of your leather. Don't get it super soaked, just get it wet, right? You see how the leather gets darker in color? Compare. Then they tell you wait for the leather to come to the original color and then you're ready to tool. When it's ready, you'll feel a difference. It'll feel cooler. And if you're not sure if with your fingers, you can just bring it up to your lips and just touch it against your lips and you'll feel the difference. When it's the same or very close in color to the original dry piece and also cool to the touch, then you're ready to tool. But there's some caveats. You have to understand what's happening inside of the leather. When you do it this way, we didn't use a whole lot of moisture. The water didn't permeate down to the lower levels. The water is getting down maybe a third of the level there, just to that top layer. When you go to tool it, that's going to create enough moisture that when your tool is struck by the hammer, it's going to compress the fibers and they're going to burnish, just exactly as if you were edge slicking. When you've wet your leather and the moisture is just sitting at that top layer, the issue that you may run into is that if you've got a lot of tooling to do, you've got a big piece or a lot of detail, or you just take a long time to do it, well, it dries out because that's what water does, right? It's going to evaporate. So then you go and you wet it again and you keep working. So you don't lose a lot of time doing that, but what you lose is every time you wet it and you wipe it with the sponge, you're pulling the oils out of the leather. You're drying it out and you're going to make it prone eventually, if you do this a lot, it may be prone to cracking. So at that point, you then, you can feel it. The leather will start to have a totally different feel. It won't tool the same way. I've heard some people say it's reverting to its natural skin state. I don't know if that's true or not, but it definitely feels different. So to compensate for that, then you start getting into rubbing a little bit of neat's foot oil on there. If you do that, use as little as humanly possible because neat's foot will ruin your tooling, but it does work. You use it just sparingly. Point being that eventually you end up having to deal with this and try to put oils back into the leather because you've been sucking them out for so long. The other method you can do, just completely submerge it in water and you see the bubbles coming out. You hold it under there until there are no more bubbles. The bigger the piece, the longer this takes. The thicker the piece, the longer it takes. You're trying to completely permeate the leather all the way through. I'm actually a little surprised how fast that was. Whatever. So that one's ready to set aside. Now, you've completely wet the leather. You want to put this on a nice flat area, undisturbed, and you don't really want any puddles. You see some pools of water? Wipe off the excess. Otherwise, those can create water stains on the surface of your leather. If you're going to walk away you're not sure how long you're going to be gone, you might go for overnight or something, you could just put a cloth over it like you're letting bread rise. That works. If you're going to be gone for quite a while, you can put cellophane over it to keep you're trying to keep the moisture from evaporating too quickly, because the whole point is to come back to it when it's about that state. If you are in a humid, warm environment, consider putting it like on a cookie sheet in the fridge. You'll inhibit any mold growth, things like that. But the advantage to doing it this way is that it lasts far, far longer. When it comes to the right state, it's still got moisture in the core and underneath, and especially because it's on a flat surface, the moisture at the bottom can't really escape except maybe through the sides a little bit, but mostly upward. So the moisture is coming up. It's going to buy you many, many more hours of tooling. So if you're doing a large piece or lots of intricate details, consider doing it this way. There's no real disadvantage except that it takes way longer. Obviously, this is going to be the quick and easy route. And again, there's nothing wrong with doing it that way. I do it that way most times. But if I have something that I think is going to take me a long time, or if I'm planning ahead and I know I'm not going to get to it today, I'll do it this way because I know that this is going to last me, I don't know, 4 hours easily. Now, maybe not such a small piece, I don't know. But when I did the map of the Sword Coast, for example, that's the sort of thing I would use this technique for. I didn't at that time. That was when I learned about neat's foot oil. If you're going to do neat's foot oil, where is my neat? Neat's foot oil goes a very, very long way. So what I do is I use as little as I can. I take a rag, put it over the top, and that's it. That's it. You'll cover that and then some. And what also I would do, I'm not going to use this piece, but If I had my tooling here, for example, I would start at the extremities. I would start away from my tooling, because when you first touch it, that's going to soak up a lot of this oil, and you don't want too much oil on your tooling. So I would start away from it and then start working towards it when the towel is almost dry. And it'll go on streaky. It'll go on like, you know, kind of streaked, kind of splotchy. But you give that a day or two to relax, and it'll become a nice supple feel. And that'll put a lot of the oils that the casing took out of the leather, it'll put them back into it. You can also do it from the rear. This helps a lot if you do have tooling and you have really bad shaped leather, like when I did that map. You can do it from the back. This will also help loosen the fibers and lubricate them so that it just be more pliable. It takes a while. You would then set this aside for at least a day, and as the oils permeate the flesh and get around all the fibers, it'll help a lot. But that's what you would do if you, I guess I would say, overcased your leather. But it takes a lot to do that. You're not going to do that all at once. So this method works fine. This method works fine, but just takes longer, but will buy you more tooling time. You'll be less likely to need to do something like that with the oils. I'm sure there are other oils you can use as well. Meats was just what I learned to use. So this leather is almost back to the original color. See, it's a little dark in these areas, but down here, for example, it's ready to go. If you have a big area, you could you can kind of work around that. You can do your tooling here while you're waiting for this to become ready. The other thing with this is you want it on a flat area. Your leather it's ready for wet forming at this point. And so even if you're not trying to wet form it, when you put it down, gravity's going to pull it down. If you want to work on a perfectly flat piece, completely submerge it and walk away for a day, it's going to lay down just from gravity pulling it down, and it is going to be the flattest piece of leather you've ever worked on. It's incredible. It's actually surprising. That can work against you. If you're expecting it to have a certain shape and you go to work on it, it could be gone, you know. So be aware of that sort of thing. Your hammer. It's ready. It's fine. So that's a perfectly legitimate way to case your leather. It's the easiest way. If you're first starting out, this is usually what you want to do. But if you're doing something very detailed, very large, very complex, consider just completely submerging your leather and planning ahead. And when it's at the same state, you're ready to go.